What's up, man? How you doing? I'm reading your
Good,
chat.
man. Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing this call interview with me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
All right, man. So after you answer that call, I have a question for you. All right, dude. So I have a few questions for you, man. So let's, you and I, of course, go way back. We've been working together for a long time. So just, of course, some of these things are, kind of internal insider jokes and insider questions. But anyways, we'll go through them right now. So I know you've been in the restaurant industry for, of course, for a long time. We were in it together for about 8 years at Suviche Hospitality Group. And the first question is, I know it's been a while since you left, actually, and we both actually not working there anymore. But do you still miss the craziness of handling operations, or are you actually glad to be out of that craziness?
So the answer to that question, both parts is yes. Both, yes. I often miss the really great moments of camaraderie and delighting a guest, but I'm also constantly reminded what a struggle that was and what a grind it is and how hard that work really is.
Hmm. Hmm. For sure, man. I mean, it's now you're in the other side. You're working at Toast now, right? So what would you say like the biggest difference is between working in operations and now working in technology?
Honestly, there's a lot of lines, parallel lines. It's a lot of the same stuff. I'm not tied to a restaurant that's open from 11:30 in the morning to 11:30 at night, 7 days a week anymore. So there's obvious quality of life impact there, but like the stress level is the same, and the work is just as hard, and you still have to push yourself to excel and to thrive and to learn. So, like in a lot of ways, I still work in the restaurant business.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Like
Right, right, right. Yeah, there's not a huge. Well, there's a difference between how tired you get for sure, but not, there's other stuff that you still.
yeah, look, 18-hour shifts are easy at 26, not so much at 36, and I'm pushing 40, and I mean, yeah.
All right, cool, man. So, in your time at Suviche, what would you say is the single most important lesson or takeaway that still influences you today?
I think I think the biggest thing that I took away was a simplification, a simplicity of what we do. I think as restaurateurs and servers and bartenders and cooks and managers, we tend to overcomplicate things, and like I realized that it was like make your guests happy and make great food and make your employees happy, and like everything else is done. It's just
Hmm.
easy besides that. Obviously there's a ton of detail and nuance into achieving those three things, but like those are the pillars. Like if you're doing those things, there's no way you're gonna fail.
Right, right. Yeah, man. I mean, I agree with you with that I learned also like at my time there, but also I think one of the main things, dude, is just to focus on processes for everything. I think that has made my life a lot easier with everything that we do. I mean, that's restaurant operations, right? Like if you don't have those systems, those processes, then it can be a disaster, right?
Being process driven is important. Yeah, not a lot of restaurants are.
No, I know. Well,
Not really a creative mindset, right? Like the
mhm,
creative is not into repetition, is not into scalability, right? And like the majority of restaurateurs are creative minds. Like your chefs, especially, right? They're artists. But even
mhm,
in the front of the house, like people delivering great hospitality, they're creative about it. It's not they're not robots delivering on the exact same experience every single time, right? Like
mhm. Yeah, no, it makes sense, man. And I actually hadn't thought about it that way, but it's 100% right. I mean, the people that are usually behind starting a restaurant are creative, and then the ones running it, if they're creative too, they're gonna have a hard time. So you gotta have somebody that's process driven, a different type of mentality to be running operations.
yeah, yeah, you definitely need both. Um, you definitely need both if you're gonna be successful because well long term, right? then you can find success in the creative short term, short term being whatever few years. But if there's any sustainability in the business, like you better figure out how to do it the same way twice.
Mm-hmm. So I know we had those. Well, especially you, of course, in operations in Suviche, we had those struggles, right, of like finding the right process and for the follow through to actually occur. When you were implementing these systems. So how did you go about making sure that these processes were being followed at the operational level, right, at the restaurant? Because you write it down, you have the process, but then that's at implementation. How do you keep the team align, and how do you get the buy-in for them to like actually align with those processes and continue to that?
So it's what you said. Like there's no alignment without buy-in. So the team needs to want to do this. If they don't want to do it, it's a waste of time. They're never going to do it. You're never going to achieve it. It's like really simple. Um,
Mm,
that doesn't mean don't change the team and find people that will buy in. But if you don't have a full team applying themselves to your processes, the processes are useless. It's like think about an air traffic controller or the guys on the tarmac with the lights. Like if they're not doing exactly what they're supposed to every single time, planes crash and they get
mhm.
fired, right? And it's kind of the same thing. We just don't crash planes, but it's the same sort of idea. Like there's a very specific way that things need to be done, and your team needs to understand that that way means they have a job tomorrow and that they can get a raise in 6 months and that the restaurant can make money so that their little brother can work here 3 years later,
Right,
that kind of thing.
right. Cool, man. So now I know you're, of course, now you're in the technology side. You're in working on, in Toast. So how, and now, looking at the current state of the landscape of the industry, the restaurant industry, where do you see the most significant opportunities and challenges from your perspective now that basically been on both sides?
You just mean like in general for the restaurant industry?
Yeah.
I mean, I think food cost and like the cost of commodities is going to be a real problem in the next 5 years in terms of affecting the bottom line and the viability of a restaurant as a business. Like, remember, majority of restaurants are scraping by and
Hmm.
all their costs are going to go up and they're not going to be able to raise their prices to the point where they're going to price themselves out. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. I think technology will be able to help there a little bit. And the other, I think, hidden challenges or silent challenges, the consumer's changing on us at a faster pace than we're used to changing, us being
Hmm.
restaurants, right? The restaurant industry. You've seen it, you saw it, right? When we worked at Suviche, like it, we were already dealing with a new consumer and we kind of picked up on it real quickly and we catered to it and we did pretty well because of it. And like when the pandemic came, we were way ahead of the curve, ready to nail out whatever it is that we needed to, and we survived. And those of us that did, we understood that the consumer rhythm is changing, right? Like what they want, how they shop, how they choose. It's not the same as it was 20 years ago or 10 years ago, and it's changing at a pace that we're not used to, and we don't know how to deal with. That kind of behavior used to change every 20 years. Now it's changing fluidly throughout 5, 10. That's hard, and
Mm,
I think those two things are going to be the biggest challenges.
for sure, man. Yeah, I agree. So, what do you think in terms of technology? Because of course now on the site that you're at, like where do you see that a system like Toast has actually changed the dynamics of operations? I mean, we cannot. I mean, I know some of these answers because we saw it right implementing Toast. I think we were one of the first ones in Florida, and we kind of saw how that affected the operation. But in your experience, what are you seeing now, and how it's affected operations and what Toast is doing?
So I think it's all like the technology is as good as the operator willing to use it. Yeah, and I think we're hesitant as a group to use it. I think the more old school people that we have, like the more difficult it is to properly integrate technology and like the fact of the matter is that if you're bringing technology into your operation, you need to be willing to make a change in your operation so that it can match the technology. And that's where it's very rare that an operator is willing to make a change like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
On a large scale, think of changing from printed tickets to a kitchen display screen. That's a huge undertaking for, like, a chef that grew up working in French restaurants and has classical training and, like, knows how to make a béarnaise. Like, I don't know how to do that stuff. That's not. But I see a screen and, like, I don't think QSR. Like, I don't. It doesn't bother me that my $500 meal was made off of a computer screen. Like, I'm glad the cook doesn't have. I'm glad they're not wasting paper. But there is a misconception or conception that those certain things belong in certain industries or certain parts of the industry. And I think any operator that's willing to accept the technology and implement it and find a way to make it work with their processes, I don't see a way where it's actually intrusive. Whether you want to make it intrusive to hospitality or work ethic or whatever, I don't feel that that's the case. I've always been a
Mm-hmm.
big technology proponent. I'm a nerd and I've always have been, and I like the way computers make our lives better. I think we see it every day. Like, we sacrifice privacy for convenience on a regular basis. But, like, we don't want to give our guests a QR code to place their order because we think our server is doing a better job selling them than a picture and a description that we can write. And that's not the case. Like, that's just not true. So, yeah.
So basically, I mean, because one of my next questions that I had for you is that if there was such a thing as over technologizing a restaurant, you know, and so that it actually plays, in in a negative way to the restaurant instead of being, facilitating things.
Again, like, is Capital Grill making you order your $400 steak on a kiosk before you sit down to eat? Like, does that take away from the experience? Does that over technologize the experience? Honestly, like, I don't really think so. If I could place my order while I was waiting for my table, and when I sat down, the server already had it, and they came over and confirmed it with me, told me it was cooking, gave me some recommendations on wine because of what I ordered, like, there's ways that everything can work, Sebastian. It's just a matter of, like, are you the operator hard headed enough or too hard headed to make it work for you?
Right. Well, I mean, with there, I actually agree and disagree in a way. I think, yes, for some restaurants, it makes sense to it. And for sure, I mean, it's going to make things a lot easier in many respects. And your experience can be great in that regards, like you're describing. But in other ways, like I think it kind of, in a way, it kind of, you miss a little bit of the human touch that brings those type of more high end experiences something extra. I think like it's more about the contact with the person and that thing. Like I think technology can kind of intervene there in a way that's not
Let
positive.
me interrupt you really quick there. Let me interrupt you really quick. So hold on. So I'm going to paint you this picture, right? So you walk into your favorite steakhouse, and
Yeah.
it's a very expensive place, very nice. You're dressed all the way, and it's like, the bar is packed and it's rocking. And the host is like, it's going to be an hour. And she says, scan this QR code. While you wait, you can look at our menu. You can even place an order, and we'll have it ready. You scan it, you play around, you actually select something. You don't even really pay attention. You go to the bar, you order a drink, you hang out, your table's ready. You sit down, and the server says, Mr. Stahl, I saw that you wanted to order a filet medium rare. Is that what you want to go with? Doesn't that all of a sudden make the experience incredible?
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
So, again, like, it's how you integrate the technology into the experience. I'm
Right.
not forcing you to do it. I don't have giant order ready boards behind my $40 martinis. No, right? But there's ways to make it work. There's ways to
Right.
make it work, and it truly enhances the experience if you're gonna. Now, look, like, is my 82-year-old father gonna love that process? No. Okay, but again, like, that's the segment that you're dealing with, and, like, when my 82-year-old dad comes in to pick up his reservation, the host is probably isn't gonna give him the QR code, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, that's fair. I mean, it's really how you use it. That's true. I mean, for sure, I'm not thinking about a kiosk in front of a, when you're walking in Capitol Grill, so you can place your steak order when you sit down, it's there. Because then I think it takes away from the experience. But I know what you're getting at.
It definitely has the potential to take it away, but I don't know.
So, I mean, now that we're talking, still continue talking about this. So, can you recall a situation where technology actually complicated operations instead of simplifying it?
Yeah, when it didn't work.
Like
Technology
what?
doesn't work all the time. We have this
Yeah.
idea that it always works and it never doesn't work. By the way, people use the iPhone as a comparison. My iPhone breaks all the time. The apps crash, the messages don't send. You know what I do? I just ignore it and I try again. That's what everybody else does. We just
Yeah.
accept that it doesn't work sometimes.
So you're getting calls all the time of people complaining because the technology is not working at the restaurant.
I didn't say that. But what I'm saying is, the more you use technology, the more the larger your threshold becomes for the technology failing you. You plan for it. Your battery dies. You have an extra cable. Like
Mhm.
you build it into your process where
Right.
if the app crashes, dude, it happened to us on this call. I'm trying to pull the app for this site on my very expensive Apple computer that's not allowing me to update my Google Chrome, which I feel like an idiot. But that's like that's the case. What did I do? I pulled out my iPad. We're having the call. Like I'm ready for the tech to fail me.
Hmm.
You're ready for your tire to go flat in your car. That happens all the time. We don't say that that's a bad thing. The car manufacturer being bad at their job, right? Like the tire went flat. That's what happened.
Right.
It
Right.
happens all the time.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, yeah, it did happen. We had a few spares with the tablets, so for
More than
sure.
a few.
Cool, man. So now moving into still with the whole thing with technology. Of course, now we have just to the amount of data that we get from all these different systems that we use at restaurants. Just forget marketing, just operationally as well. So in your experience or your perspective, how do you prioritize which data to look at and to act upon? Especially when we have just so much information.
So I don't think that we have any more information than we ever had. Okay, the data's
Mhm.
always been there, right? It's never been
Right. It wasn't
actionable.
available.
No, it was available. It just wasn't
Mhm.
actionable because we couldn't process it. Okay, so we couldn't
Right.
digest the data. Today, with things like ChatGPT and OpenAI, I think that we're going to cross the bridge of imagine being able to ask an AI bot, right? Consume this raw data from my restaurant and tell me based off this data who my best server is, what's my best time of day, what's my best item, who's selling my best items. Like you have access to create information for yourself that you weren't even, the questions never even crossed your mind because you never
Hmm.
were able to process the data. So you would never even be like, oh, I wonder what this would, well, I can't figure that out. So
Right.
I can't figure out why. Listen, if there's a real path to AI being able to tell you who to schedule, when to schedule them, what to cook, how much to cook of it, right? And all of this is human input right now. And it can be 100% data driven. You have data, you can take ticket times from your kitchen display system, food costs from your inventory tracking system, right? Understand which servers are upselling the right items at the right time of day, all of which before would be, 100,000 hours in front of a spreadsheet that probably would be wrong.
Right. Right. Even not even. I mean, dude, even with the POS system, and I remember because we had all that data available, but just sitting down like to first selecting the data that you want to look at and creating reports for that, and then pulling that data and sitting there and kind of analyzing everything that was there. So yeah, I mean, I agree. It's just a matter of, I think it's a matter of the selecting what you want to look at, really being decisive on that, and then also streamlining the process. And of course, yes, with AI, I mean, if that's going to be possible in the near future, to like just make it so much faster to look at that data whenever you want to, then yeah.
Well, it eliminates having to choose which data to look at because you get to
Right.
digest all the data as one and then just
Hmm.
ask the question and let the AI look through hundreds of thousands of lines of data and give you an
Hmm.
answer in 30 seconds.
Hmm. Right. Right. So do you think there's a technological solution for like almost every operational challenge, or do you think, of course, we're missing, there's part of it that's really the human touch that will always be superior to technology?
Um, like you're asking me if a robot can make me feel good, right? That's basically what you're asking.
Well, they're going to be more efficient than you, that's for sure.
But are they going to make me feel good as a guest? Like that.
Well,
That's what we're talking about.
well,
So
you're talking
I
about two
there's two
things.
applications. There's
Uh-huh.
two ways that robots can't work, right? They can be bartenders, right? Because bartending is there's no like that's a 100% repeatable process. Weight by weight and volume, right? Cooking is a little bit more nuanced. Like I wouldn't trust a robot to cook because there's certain variables that could change the cook time or the cook process for a certain item. There's ways to streamline it, but now you're talking about McDonald's, right? Like I think that there is a human touch that you want in your top 100 restaurants of the world, right? Like you want those chefs doing that. But
Mhm.
like when it comes to one-on-one human interaction, guest interaction, like the empathy, like you read Unreasonable Hospitality, right? Like
Yeah,
the dream weaver, like
right.
you're never gonna have a robot dreamweave, right? So like that little bit, and listen, brilliant book, brilliant process. Think about AI doing for them what they were doing. They had to hire multiple people to research their guests and find information about them and find their picture and blah 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 blah. This is something that AI can do for us in 30 seconds now.
Hmm.
Cross-reference my reservation list with a Google search and all this other stuff, and all of a sudden, four people's job becomes one person's job, and that's scary, right? That's scary. But that's also industry. Like that's the American way. People get left behind that don't adapt and don't learn, and like you better get with it. It's coming. It's not a matter of if, right? Like
Yeah, it's here. It's here. I agree, man. I think that it's about you gotta adapt. You just gotta, change with times, use it to the best of your ability, and educate yourself on the stuff that's available because it can make things a lot easier. And yes, it's gonna, it it should, in my opinion, I think it should evolve instead of taking away from people. You
but I
know.
think it only takes away from people because, and we're going to get a little bit off topic here, but because people are not innovative, they're stubborn. They want to do the same thing that they've always done. So, like, instead of adapting at 35, I just want to keep doing things the way that I was taught or the way that I know how to do them. And yeah, it's scary because my job is being taken away. Yeah, your job's being taken away, but go find a better one. That's the whole That's the whole thing. Like, you don't have to work on a line building cars because we have robots. Go teach yourself how to do something. Go educate, get educated, and learn how to run the robots. And that's it. I'm done with that. We won't cut that part out.
Cool. All right, man. So now switching gears a little bit. Now we're going to want to talk a little bit about, marketing and operations and how they tie in. Of course, you and me have quite a bit of experience with this stuff and the struggles with that stuff. But, how important do you think it is for a marketing team, or an agency to have an in-depth understanding of restaurant operations?
I wish we had videos of our. I'm gonna call them conversations at our conference table in the offices, and I use that word very lightly. Conversations. It's the most important thing.
Hmm.
It's the most important thing. A restaurant is unlike any other business, and if your storyteller, which is what your marketing team is, doesn't
Hmm.
understand what you're doing, they're not going to tell the story properly, and then it's a waste of time.
Hmm. For sure. I mean, I think that's one big part of it, right? But also, when it comes to execution, in well, our experience is, we come up with an idea, and I don't know what's going on with, the team at the restaurant and how that's going to be executed. I'm like, hey, man, I got this awesome idea. You're like,
Well,
yeah, man, you gotta want to create a new menu. You know what that entails?
well, that's different, right? But yes, you're right. That plays a huge role, and like having the empathy to understand how much work your coworkers do, right? I think is important. That's important anytime. I experience that now, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, if your marketing team has only like a surface level understanding of what the restaurant is and how it works, they're only going to be a surface level. They're only being able to deliver surface level results. Like that's just right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. No, I agree, man. Cool. And so, can you share an instance where a gap, in understanding between operations and marketing led to a missed opportunity or a challenge or something that went sideways?
Hmm.
I mean, I can remember a
Um,
couple.
I mean, yeah, I can remember a lot. Mainly, like I don't know. I think National Ceviche Day one day was a major disaster,
When
just
I was
because,
making 500 ceviches as well
bro,
on the line.
what a mess that day. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the perfect example. Like, I don't think anybody really realized the impact that the promo would have, and we trusted ourselves and didn't prepare, fully underprepared, like fully underprepared, um, and company wide too, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
If you think about large scale swings and misses, like way to f it up real bad, you did in like five restaurants. I had five restaurants at the time. Solid. That was a really solid move. But no harm, no foul. We learned and actually crushed that now every year, which is really cool, right? Like at least we picked something good out of it. But yeah, I would say that would be my burning moment
Yeah. Yep. I
in
agree, man.
operations, in the story
I
of
remember that one.
operations versus marketing.
Well, that's the thing, man. There's got to be, very clear line of communication with all that stuff. That's what I think. You know what I mean? And even then, it can it can go sideways. And so, what do you think in the role of marketing? How does it influence operations and the feedback loop, really, especially that needs to happen between operations and marketing to be, to come up with better strategies.
I mean, look, I don't think that restaurant operators are marketing whizzes generally.
Mm-mm.
And so there's a collaborative necessity there where the creative, the marketer, needs to come in with at least some knowledge, but it's also good to not have a lot, right? And be able to paint outside the lines a little bit.
Mm.
I think that works really well. It worked really well for us in certain
Right.
things, right? Um, and yeah, I mean, look, if you're not, like you said, if that line of communication isn't wide open, like if you're not really participating and sharing and like understanding one another, the truth is you can't live without each other. We tend to butt heads because of what it is, right? Like the operation just wants to do their job and marketing just wants to give you more job to do. And like those two things should be aligned, but it is what it is. And like the more constructive the process can be, I
Hmm.
think that you always have buy-in from the store, right? And
Right.
as long as the restaurants are bought in, and you see it, right? Like when big chains roll out LTOs and specials, like it's a big buy-in process. Like it's a big training for the staff. It's all kinds of materials, all kinds of and this is way before the marketing has run, right? Like,
Hmm.
and it's true because you can do all the marketing you want. If the staff doesn't know about it, if the staff isn't pushing it, then it's totally a waste. On the other side, if the staff is doing all the work and nobody outside knows, also a waste. So like it's just this balance that you need to have, and yeah, communication is the most important part.
Right. So what do you think it's, because I mean, you've worked with different companies and everything, but in terms of marketing also, what do you think is the biggest thing that the marketers miss and overlook about the operational side of things when they're trying to implement things?
I don't know. I think just not listening to the operator is the biggest miss, and like I think the bad marketer is pushing a discount and is trying to drive revenue the wrong way.
Right.
Um, and instead of showcasing the greatness of the business and its product, it's devaluing it to drive traffic, which might at first look at right the Groupon phenomenon, right? It always brings people, but nobody else comes back, and you didn't
Right.
make any money off those sales. So where are you now? It's a challenge. People like free stuff, right? It definitely drives business, but I think we're at a point today where free is less important to the consumer,
Right.
and they're more interested in special, right? They want it's more about who I am and how I'm being treated than getting 10% off every time I come eat or getting a free sandwich after 10 visits.
Right.
I want access to the sandwich menu that nobody else has, or I want the
Right.
sandwiches that nobody else knows are there. So again, it's this transition that we're in, that where we just have to keep up with what the consumer wants, and like, thank God technology gets built fast enough today that you can find tech to keep up with the trend, right?
Right. Right. No, agreement. I think it's a delicate mix, right? So I think yes, like certain discounts and stuff will drive traffic, and it just depends where you're using those. But in agreeing with you, it's about building long term value, and I think it's, in my opinion, and I think you'll agree, is, and it happens. I mean, from what I see from the operational side of from restaurant owners, is sometimes they don't see the value, the long-term value investing in brand building, because they don't really understand what that really means. You know what I mean? Because brand building can be expensive, and you're creating value in different ways that might not bring the result right away. But what you're doing is increasing the value of your brand and your business. So if you're looking at, again, long-term vision, your business is going to be worth way more than it is right now if you invested it in the right way, right, in marketing, and not necessarily discounts or promotions. It's a different way of investing. It's investing in again in brand image and reputation and all these things, right? And
Yeah,
that's really
definitely.
tied into operations as well, because your biggest marketing team, I would say, for restaurants is your staff, because they represent your business. They're the face to face to your with your guests. So, you know,
Yeah, I'm gonna push back on you there. I'm gonna say your biggest marketing team are your guests.
well, yeah, both. Depends on what perspective you're talking about. Yeah,
There's no substitute for a happy guest.
right, right,
That's what it is.
true. But you're gonna make them happy through your team.
Of course, but like, it doesn't matter how good the team is
Mm-hmm.
if the food was bad. It doesn't matter how good the food is if the team was bad. It, there's all these checks and balances in place that, like, you could do the best job ever marketing, and the customers will never come back the second time. It doesn't matter,
Mm-hmm.
right? And all these things have to line up for it to matter. And then, yeah, I mean, it guests are very fickle, right? And there's so many options today.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah, so it's, I mean, and that's the thing. It's extremely competitive. I mean, it depends, of course, which city you're in. Especially, I mean, Miami for sure. So to stand out there, just to play ball, you got to deliver great service, and great food. You know.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. It's something that's overlooked. People don't. I don't know. I see restaurants that don't pay enough attention to the important things, and it's no wonder. It's no wonder the business has such a negative connotation, and like, it's known as such a difficult business to succeed in, because yeah, there are a lot of moving pieces, but like I said at the beginning of, when we first started talking, like, it's simple, man. Make great food, make happy guests, make happy employees, all at the same time. You'll never
Hmm.
fail. You'll never fail. Maybe you won't become a millionaire, right? But you won't fail.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And from your perspective, like, what do you think are the biggest? Because we were talking about this before, also about, it, what do you think are the biggest questions or unanswered questions that restaurant owners have about marketing? Because it's like, so you were talking about before, it's a vague concept sometimes in owners, in restaurateurs like minds. They're just like, marketing, like, what? There's just so much. People think that marketing is social media, and that's it. You know what I mean?
Like, I think what you said right there is what it is. Like, right, what the unanswered question is, what is marketing? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because marketing is 1,000 different things. It's brand building, it's digital presence, it's social media, it's freaking logos, it's the colors, it's font size, it's font choice. Like, marketing is everything, but it's also nothing if you don't have the app on the other side. The marketing doesn't matter, and if you don't have the marketing, really, it doesn't matter how good a job you do. Like, you're limiting yourself, you know. So I think most restaurants struggle to understand how broad, like large scope marketing is, right? What marketing can do for you. And I
Mm-hmm.
also think that it's very hard to quantify what's being done. And now with technology, we're gaining some of that ability, right? We can assign real ROI, assign real dollars and cents to marketing actions. And you can say, this thing we did generated this for your business. Maybe not revenue, but look at these impressions. Look at people
Right.
talking about us, right? And look, man, I've been in this business for a long time. I have my own business. Like, I don't really understand marketing. I don't get how it works. I know that we got to spend money to make money, and I know
Mhm.
that there's certain situations that I need to post my ad and boost my ad and all those other things. But like, there's a reason why I do what I do, because I don't know how the hell to do that. And your proof, it's really freaking difficult. It like it's way beyond the education you got and the experience you have, you know? And I think that's what makes it like sort of taboo for some restaurant owners, right? Like, it's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's so there's two things I see with this part, right? Is first marketing. I mean, I think what really drives marketing is strategy, right? So a plan, basically, come as like, what the hell is I mean, what's your restaurant about? You know, and restaurants are complicated because of what you were talking about, tracking all that stuff. But
Let me ask you a question. You know a lot of restaurant owners that have a good plan?
no. Well, that's why I exist. so, so we exist because, but and that's usually the problem because there's no plan. So they're just like, oh, let's just run promotions here, let's run that there. No tracking system, just boosting posts like you were saying. So no idea how to really set up a system where you can really measure what's going on and then really think about your concept and what it needs. And again, planning long term, not just short term gains. It's like people think we're club promoters. Hey man, I need traffic. We need to get butts in seats.
No,
Doesn't
that's a
work that way.
good analogy. You're not a club promoter, and that goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, Sebastian. You know, it's about consistency, and like, if you put a creative mind in a position to build a system, it's you're gonna fail
Mhm.
at least long term, and a creative mind often doesn't see the value in the
Right.
processes, right? So
Right.
it's difficult. It's difficult.
Right, because then they get, and what I see is all the time see this the frustration with they think again marketing and social media, so they're posting on their social channels and they think that's going to bring people. It's not going to do anything. You're just basically you're covering the basics of having your Instagram profile, right? And that's
Right,
it.
right, right.
It's like you have a menu. Okay, cool. How are the people going to come with that? You know what I mean? So it's a lot more than that, and I think that's what happens, that many restaurant owners fail to understand that that's what happens. You know what I mean? But anyways, that's I'll stop there because there's a lot more to that from my point of view. But
Definitely a
yeah,
lot to
well,
unpack there.
for sure, man. So all right, so last round of questions, man. This is gonna be a quick one. So lightning round, quick fire responses. Best dish at Suviche?
Aquí de gallina.
No way, dude.
Okay, what's your answer?
Chifa, ceviche chifa.
No,
Still my
dude,
favorite.
get out of here. The backup quarterback. You know that
All
story?
right.
The backup quarterback story?
Yeah. All right. Three best restaurants in Miami.
Right now,
Yeah.
Boy a Day,
Yeah.
maybe Osaka,
Mm-hmm.
and like I have like free reign. It can be like a very expensive or very cheap restaurant.
Anything. Yeah.
Anything. I mean, I'm gonna have to say like Latin America, like some like some shitty Cuban restaurant down the street.
Come on, man. I'll give it to you. Whatever. Human sandwich.
Well, that's my heart, dude.
That's true. All right, most challenging day of the week.
The one that ends in Y. A stupid question. They're all hard.
All right, so we're gonna play Would You Rather. Would you rather have a restaurant with superb marketing but average food, or amazing food but no marketing at all?
Food and no marketing.
I knew you were gonna say
I'm a proud guy. I'm a proud guy, man. I want my customers coming back.
that. Yeah, but what happens when you have a ton of competition? You got great food next door, so. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but if they're not, if they're coming, if the marketing's bringing them for the first time, that again Groupon, right? Like if they're coming, great, but if they don't come back, it's a waste.
that's true. That's true. All right, what's the funniest or most unexpected feedback you've ever received from a customer?
We're talking about safe for work feedback, right? Here, PG
Whatever,
feedback.
whatever feedback.
I've gotten some crazy stuff, but my favorite ones are like I used our customers at Suviche that would be like, this ceviche is not how they make it in Peru. And I would always be like, yeah, well, we're not in Peru, so yeah, I got it. Thank you for the
Right.
feedback, but go back if you want that because we can't make that for you here. We have different ingredients. Sorry. That kind of feedback we get all the time, not just at Suiche, but at other. I used to
Right.
work out on the border, dude. Like I'll have customers complaining about on the border Mexican food. I'm like, this is literally an American company, like rolling up and frying tortillas. Like, what do you expect, lady? Sorry.
Yeah, that's right, man. And all right, so looking back at last question is looking back at your journey and of course you're through restaurant operations and working in toast. What's one piece of advice that you would give someone stepping into the restaurant operations world?
Don't kill yourself. That would be
Mm.
my first and most important piece of advice. Do I have to expand on that? That's clear enough. Yeah.
I get it, but if you want to explain a little bit, you can.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's no reason to work 100 hours a week. Like, it doesn't matter what the situation is. Like, there's no way, there's no scenario where that's the right answer. It just gonna work out for the worst if that is where you are. But more importantly, every single skill that you learn working in a restaurant is transferable. It's the only industry I think that you can come in as a high schooler and build some skills through high school and college that immediately transfer into the professional environment and turn you into an instant adult, which is an undervalued and undervalued character quality. It's just it's an it's the perfect mix of having to do too much. And if you can succeed in a restaurant, you can succeed doing absolutely anything.
Yeah. Why do you, so talking about that, just this, to end with this is, why do you think people, I mean, in the restaurant world, it's such a custom to work 100 hours? I mean, I get the long hours and I get sort of, you can get it. Why? I know that's kind of changing now, right? Because like, as I think people are finally noticing that that's not sustainable, right? But why do you think that? Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think people just think that that's just the way it has been and the way it needs to be? Like running, 100-hour weeks or whatever.
Because that's always been romanticized, and not just in the restaurant business. Every single industry has their stupid grind culture, and
Mm.
it's killing everybody, and it's not the right way forward. And in restaurants, our employees are very expensive. So yeah, like we overwork people all the time, right? And we say that we're doing a great job, and like really we're not. We're hurting our employees by in effect then hurting our guests, which then hurts our
Mm.
business, and it's not the right way. Like I don't have all the answers, right? Like you need six servers on the
Yeah.
floor, and they only made $80 a night, and you can't get six servers to work for $80 a night. Like that's that's a real problem that we face. I don't have the answer to that, but I know making those servers work 12-hour shifts isn't the answer either, right? So like, where are we going to go? Where does the industry go? What do we do? I think what's happening is that human beings are saying no, and so the restaurant business has to respond. Like, we have to have an answer. We have to have a solution in some way. And it's, if it's technology, if it's smaller restaurants, if it's bigger restaurants, like, you know, I don't know, dude. Like, I don't see 300-seat restaurants being built as often as before. That's for
Mm-hmm.
sure. I don't see 10,000 square foot kitchens with 400 seats. Like, I don't see that. Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
people take over those old spaces, but people want 50-seat restaurants now, 70-seat restaurants. Look at Boya, look at Walrus Rodeo. Like, all the good, great. Look at Doma. Like, maybe they have 100 seats or 125. Sorry, I'm just ripping off restaurants in Miami. Nobody's gonna know what I'm talking about. There's definitely a capacity line that affects your quality and is unsustainable. Like, if you need 20 cooks in your kitchen, get the hell out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate your time, doing this interview with me.